Alrighty, another episode, another segment, and today I'm joined by an accountant. Not an accountant, by the way, a chartered accountant. Hey, man, I once made a mistake of calling someone an accountant and they were CA. Hey,
Hey. Hey, it makes sense, Yeah, after the tough journey that they had. So they just have to put it there, like, hey, you're not just an accountant.
Yeah.
You see.
How tough was it for you?
Oh, man. I think for me, university was great. I won't lie. My university years were very nice. I think I managed to pass very well. The first 2 years, first year I think I got 7 A's. Second year 5 A's. Third year, man, things changed.
Wait. First year, you got how many distinctions?
7.
7. Now, when we talk about the real cost hours, we're talking about you guys. Like 7 distinctions. And then second year, you say you got 5 distinctions, right?
Yeah, second year I've got 5.
Then you were still telling me about third year, things got a bit...
Yeah, I think third year, man, it's like, I think that's where the course starts, to tell the truth. Because that's where, remember in first year and second year, you'll be doing like supporting courses like your commercial law, on a high level. It's not like they go in depth, Then in third year and fourth year, that's where you do most of your core modules. That's where like they only focus on the 4 core modules, being your tax, accounting, auditing, and management accounting. You see, whereas in first year it was more on introductory topics on those 4 core modules. You see, so third year for me it was like tough, man, especially with auditing. I think auditing was just one of those courses that showed most of us flames. So yeah, I think that's where you're just praying for a 50 there, like, God, please give me 50. I just want to pass, Then fourth year I still struggle with auditing. I think if it was in auditing, when people say Wits Charles and stuff, I'll be like, nah, not really. But fourth year things happen, man. I think, when you're at the end and you see yourself doing articles next year, and auditing is just there being a burden on you and saying, Chief, you are not going anywhere. Fourth year, that's when I failed my auditing. I think I failed, actually. Fortunately, I got a sub, then, you're in a panic era. I think we wrote sub in, I think somewhere in early December, if I still remember well. Yeah, there's this professor. If you know the paper, the moment he says Punda Maria, that's the professor. He came for you. He showed me flames, man. But fortunately, I managed to pass that sub, and yeah, that's when I was like, no, I survived. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about a lot of things, man. We're gonna talk about a lot of things. I want us to delve into, I was hosting Clan Tim Shungane the other day, and I was telling him that I think him, yourself, and Gift Movie, you guys, I think you have mastered this accounting route and stuff like that. So we're gonna talk a lot more about that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm joined by Itumeleng Mosoma CA, a chartered accountant, a qualified chartered accountant. Itumeleng is a senior corporate tax consultant in one of the Big 4. Is it Big 4 or Big 5?
I think last time I checked, it was still Big 4. I don't know what happened after.
Okay. Okay. So does everyone wants to be in the Big 4? Is it a badge of honor? Obviously, it's a badge of honor, obviously. But how tough is it to get into the Big Four?
I think myself, I got in indirectly in a way that I got it after I've done my articles, But I think obviously with the Big Fours, what they do like complex stuff in a way because of they're involved on big entities, So obviously, if you train in a Big Four, it means you have exposure to big entities like most of listed entities. So your exposure and complexity of issues is more advanced as compared to maybe going into a smaller medium firm. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Just before we start, when I was coming here today, I was playing this song, man. I don't know if you remember the song, Kenny Makweng, Mapostola Paulus. And I remember I used to love that song so much, man.
Yo, man. Take me back, man. Kenny Makweng, man, was one of the artists for me that kept me sane during my university years, after a long lecture where you just get in and you are just there sitting for an hour and don't understand what happened, you get to your room, you're like, God, what's happening? Then when you play such songs, they start to ease you and say, hey, at least you're not alone, Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let us study it here. Let us study it at university, Itumeleng. So you've just cited that your first year you got 7 distinction. I'm still very amazed by that. Second year 5 distinctions, and then the JNE and stuff like that. Let us study it there. So here you are. You come to Wits to come and do your Bachelor of Accounting Science at Wits. And then, people say cost Charles and everything like that. What made you to actually overachieve like that? Give the students the recipe, man.
I'm not sure if there's such a recipe, but I'll just outline what worked for me, man. But I think the greatest thing for me was what motivated me to be a cost child, if there's such a word. Coming from a township in Pretoria and making it to Wits for the first time, you just want to at least show that you also deserve to be there, right? So it was more of having that burning desire of making it at Wits. Yeah? Then academic-wise, it was more of I realized something actually. I think as time goes on, I think the first test, it was accounting 1. I think I failed that test. I failed that test, man. And it was the first time failing something. I think if you make it to Wits, obviously you're already above average. Then when you fail, you're like, damn, what's happening? Then I went back and reflected and looked at that paper and the memorandum and what I've written. I'm like, geez, things completely happened here. It's like you just went off the tangent. They've taught you this. It seems like you didn't understand what was happening, and this is what you've written, right? But this is what you were supposed to write. So I think what worked, this was more on self-reflection, on when you failed, you don't blame anyone. You sit down and ask yourself what went wrong, right? And then what I've identified is most of the time, the things or the principles that are being asked in an exam, they're the principles that have been taught in a lecture, also in lecture tutorials. So there's no way, I tend to be corrected there, but there's no way you could be asked a concept that you have never seen before, you see. So I think if you make sure that you go through your lectures and make sure you understand the content that is being taught, and then make sure that all the principles, you understand what are they trying to teach you on these principles and where do they apply. Then when you go to the next exam, you already know that, okay, this is what the when it comes to asset definition, this is what they're looking at. This is how they applied it, and then this is how you need to approach any question. You see, so it's more on self-reflection and making sure that you understand the principles and you apply in a way which lecturers expect you to have answered that question. Yeah.
And how was your study routine? Were you those students who actually you're always consulting, always active in the tutorials and stuff like that?
No, man. For me, I think the challenge back then, I think it was English, So, if you have to go and consult, you're thinking like, how am I going to outline this issue to the lecturer? So I rather not consult at all, So I wasn't consulting, to tell the truth. I was consulting to my peers, like the likes of Kandi and some guys, Isaac Moses. Those are the guys which I came with in the first year. So we consult. When you consult in your own language, you're like, Chief, what do you understand about this thing? They're like, nah, Mosoma, this is what's happening and stuff. Then it's easier that way for me. Then I think the other thing was making sure that I don't fall behind. I think once the content is still fresh in your mind after the lecture, let's say later in the day, just to reflect and say, this is what is being taught today. These are my takeaways for the day, as compared to having to wait for maybe the last 2 weeks before exam. Because accounting is a course which builds principles built on each other. So if you get the foundations right, then if they introduce a new principle, it's easy to understand that new principle if your foundation was right. And the only way you can understand the foundations is if you follow through with your lectures, and not stay behind. Yeah, I think that's what worked for me.
Hey, yeah, no, man. I mean, this is quite impressive, This is quite because I see accounting students having these big books, man. I'm like, yo, these people read too much. Those big books and they have these colorings.
Ish, man. Don't remind me, man. Those were like, those were the books, man. It was very difficult to read those books. I won't lie. Sometimes it will be, especially from my side, auditing. We had books, I think they still have now, called ISAS, International Standards, Auditing Standards, along those lines. You see, you'll read a concept, there you'll read, let's say ISA 315, you'll read, and you're like, what's going on? And still read again, So those books, they really traumatized me.
You spoke about auditing, I think, more than once since we have started this conversation. Is auditing the problem subject in accounting, or is it financial accounting? Because I also had people complaining about FINEC and MENEC, management accounting.
I think, to tell the truth, man, I think of all the 4 modules, each and every person has got their own weakness on it. For me, it was auditing. And then for my friends, it was, let's say, MENEC or tax and stuff. So that's why it's always advisable that you consult with each other. Because once the other person's strength point may be your weakness, then at least you balance each other. Because at the end of the day, you have to pass all the courses, all the 4 modules in the same year in order to progress to the next level, right? So I think what worked for me, it was that group that I had, which we consult maybe once a week or after class, especially on the weak areas. Yeah.
And like with every course or with every sort of discipline, there is always this, I don't know, strategies or techniques or tactics that people use. More like, what is the word? I don't want to say shortcuts, but this sort of I don't know how to put this. Do you guys have those kind of things in accounting where you can say like, for accounting, if you actually get this and this and this, you know, strategies or something like that, or studying smart, as people call it?
Yeah, I think that accounting is more of principles, right? They give you these principles and they say this is how things work for a certain issue, you know. For example, with tax, there's a legislation that guides on this is how individuals are being taxed on, this is how corporates are being taxed on, right? So it's good to understand those principles, but I think the next step is to be able to know the triggers, you know. So we had, I think with my friends, we had what we call triggers. Triggers meaning that when you read the scenario, because our questions were like scenario based, they'll give you a scenario and they'll give you an issue. So when you read the scenario, you must be able to, the moment you read the first sentence, let's say there'll be, let's say X, Y, and L company, PTY Limited, based in South Africa. What triggers there? That one line triggers a whole new thing. It triggers that, okay, from tax perspective, here you are dealing with a company. It means all the individual tax legislation that you know, it doesn't apply in this case. That's the first point. Then the next point, they say it's a resident in South Africa. That also triggers something. That means that company, from a tax perspective, the tax applies from the worldwide perspective. It means it takes on all the receipts and accruals from the whole world and not only South Africa. You see, by just reading that sentence, you are able to identify triggers. I think same applies to accounting. The moment you see something, you know, okay, this triggers this standard. You know, let's say you say, let's say maybe they're talking about provisions. You know, okay, if they're talking about the provision, this will trigger ISA 37. You know, it's all about triggers in a scenario. You get those triggers right.
Oh, I see now. I see. So people need to get the principles right and know under which circumstances are those principles triggered. You know, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, qualifying to be a chartered accountant, it seems like a very rigorous process. How was your journey?
Yes. As I said, university was a bit fine for me until third year and fourth year. Even though there was only one subject that I was struggling with for both years, auditing. Then after that, you go and write the first board exam, which is early in Jan, right? That means you have to study during December, right? For me, I had to study during December, during my year, you know. People were enjoying the December holidays, and I was just there walking from one township to the other to a library to study for that exam. Then come January, it's just more of brushing up because you've already studied this for that exam, right? Then from there, you write the first board exam. Fortunately, I passed the first board exam first time, which was a good thing, you know. Then, unfortunately, I couldn't write my second board exam on my second year of articles because I started late because of some issues with my training offices and stuff, right? That means I wrote my second board exam on the third year of articles, right? Then that's when things happened. You know, third year of articles, it means you write in, I think you write in November, and my articles were finishing somewhere in March or April the next day. It means you are left with 6 months or 6 months before you finish your articles. That's when I wrote my second board exam. Oh man, I think if there's one thing I won't forget in my life, it was that board exam. I failed, man. Yeah, I failed. I think it was the first time in my life I failed, really failed. Meaning that you failed if there's no SAP. Yeah, I failed, and that thing killed me, man. But at least my father was there. I remember when the results came out, I think it was on a Friday. Result came out. I didn't get the exam at the exact time. I think they were at past four somewhere there. Then I didn't get the exam, the SMS immediately. Just there waiting. Then I got it. Oh, then the SMS says, Itumeleng, CA regrets to inform you. Oh man, I cried, man. Even today, it still has me. You know, when you're in a marathon, Brian, and you've ran kilometers, and when you see the finish line there, like I'm finishing, then your legs be like, I can't do it anymore. That's the same feeling I had. Yeah, then I failed. Then I failed that exam. Then the second board exam is written on November of each year. So if you fail, then it means you have to wait for the next year. Yeah, then I waited. That time it means it's post articles, right? You are done with your articles. It's just that you are not qualified as a CAS yet. Then after that, the next year I wrote the exam. We had some challenges. I think, yeah, there were some challenges during that exam, but fortunately I passed. Yeah, I think that's where the journey for me was.
Yeah, no, it sounds very, like, yeah, it sounds like a very long journey. And you know, you see chartered accountants, and then, you know, I mean, the title is big itself, but to get there, man, like you've just said right now, hey, Mukarik, it's quite like an up and down process, you know. So what can you advise people, for people who are actually going through the journey of qualifying, and then maybe they fail, and before that, how did you come back? How did you wrote again, and then how did you make sure that this time now I'm getting it right?
Oh yeah, I think what helped me, man, it was the so how the progress works. How the progress works is before you can so you qualify to write the second board exam. You see. Yeah, you qualify to write the second board exam. You qualify to write the second board exam. So, from my perspective is we had to do it's called an APC program. So it's like a program that prepares you to write for that exam, right? So I think what helped me was that program, because that program, the way it's structured, it helped you to prepare for that exam, especially because you write a test in between, you know, that prepares you towards that exam. Then as you write, I think one of the key things that I took from that exam, that process even today, which I use in the workplace, is self-reflection, meaning that after you've written the exam, you need to, and you get the result, you need to sit down and say, identify what worked and what didn't work, and what you need to take out from that exam. You get it? Because, for example, before I would just give a solution, just push theory down there, right? That means you didn't answer the why. You know, why are you applying that principle, and what value do you add on your solution? Did you solve the problem? You know, those are the kind of things that I've learned from that program. So I think it helped me to prepare, because when I went to the exam, I had a one pager. It's like a formula. Say, okay, when you answer, make sure that you ask why. Make sure that you apply to this scenario. You know, like make sure that if the question is silent, let's say maybe about text, if you see that it applies, put it in, don't forget it, you know, something like that. So it was more, I think for me, it was the board exam, the board program that I attended, and the strategies I think they did help me to progress for my second.
Talking about that, you know, someone asked on YouTube, someone said, asked is like, hi, could you ask him what his study schedule was like during CTA and how he managed to pass CTA?
Okay. As I said, with making sure that you don't fall behind, right? So I think that's the key, making sure that you don't fall behind, because as I said, the way the accounting program is being structured is in a way that it builds on each other. The principles build on each other. They give you the foundations, then they build from those foundations. So in my time back at varsity, it was just a matter of, after the lectures later in the day, just go and reflect on what principle did I learn today, and then at which context will this principle apply. So it's like principle, context, and how to apply these principles. Then obviously other subject like your financial accounting is more numbers based most of the time, so it means you have to practice most of the time, doing more questions and learning from it. Then from auditing side of things, that was my challenge, obviously. So it will just be a matter of spending most of the time focusing on auditing. I think I gave it for a weekend, like weekends for auditing. Then later in the day, you'll just consult your friend who's good in auditing, just to make sure that you did understand the principles you have studied during the day.
What was about auditing that was quite difficult for you?
Okay. I think, to tell the truth, it's funny how my first job was in an audit firm. So you can see how funny it is. This is the thing that you struggled with. Then, after you've passed it, you still go. Yeah, but what I realize is auditing is a practical course, to tell the truth. Auditing is a practical course. So it's just that at varsity, it's treated that's my opinion. The way it's treated like a theoretical course, whereas auditing is a practical course. You see, meaning that you need to understand what is happening in practice. It's an actionable course, because there'll be like from theory side of things, they'll be like, okay, we are doing a risk assessment. There's a standard that guides you on how risk assessments are being done, right? They'll be like, okay, understand the NTT, do this and do that. You get it? Whereas when they take it a step further in the real world, that's where they'll be like, there's this thing called business process descriptions, meaning that you sit with the client and the client will take you through how they account for a certain transaction end to end. You get it? And you see different source documents, you see the different steps that are being done physically. Whereas at varsity, you just picture something, but you don't really understand what's going on, you see. So I think what I can advise to students who are doing auditing, I'll say, it's better if you study those standards, then at least talk to the guys who are doing articles and say, man, I see this is what's happening on the standard. Please elaborate on how it's being done in practice. Then if they give you that picture, I think it's then going to be easy for you to know at which audit process are you at, on a certain question. Yeah, I don't know if I've elaborated, because after I left the audit practice that time, I went straight into tax and didn't want to go back.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna talk about that. I would like us to talk about auditing versus tax, because you went into tax. We're gonna talk about that. But now, from what you have said right now, when you're at varsity, you study these things, and you study. you write the exams, the tests, and stuff like that. And then you go to work, like yourself, you are working now. What is the difference, between, studying these things and now doing these things in real life? What can you say about those things?